Welcome to a very special 5 on 5. I'm joined in studio by Jackson County Administrator Danny Jordan. Danny, thanks for taking the time joining me.
Thanks for having me here today, Craig. Appreciate the opportunity.
So we're talking, of course, about the Almeda and South Obenchain After Action Report completed by IEM for the county, releasing the report last week. We've all been waiting for this. It's been a long time coming. It released a long list of strengths and also areas to improve upon. It praised many of Jackson County's actions, including first responders' heroic door-to-door evacuations, the creation of a citizen hotline, and the quick activation of the expo as a temporary evacuation point for evacuees. Before we get to some of the big questions that we've already been discussing, what stands out to you overall now that you've had a week to digest this report?
Yeah, I think what stands out to me the most is how tragic this event was, in the fact that 3 lives were lost. What stands out to me is all of the people that it took to try to manage through this event and continues to take to manage through this event, the number of agencies involved, and just the sheer effort to save lives and how successful we really were with that. Tragic that 3 lives were lost. In this case, 2 of those were people who were contacted and had the opportunity to evacuate and chose not to. And so given the amount of destruction that was done by this and the limited life loss, I think that all of the people who participated, and that ranges from government agencies to nonprofit to private citizens, it took everybody to try to make sure that we had the least amount of death toll as possible, and that stands right out in the report, top of the list to me.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to backseat quarterback any situation, especially a rare wind event like this. No local firefighter had ever seen anything like it. No residents have either, unless they happen to be in Santa Rosa, Paradise, or Redding, and when those horrific fires occurred. Now, we've reported before that the head of the EOC, John Weil, and Sheriff Sickler indicated an EAS county-wide alert could have added more chaos to what is clearly an already unprecedented situation. Where do you stand on this now, having looked at this report? Do you think it was good that no EAS was issued?
Well, I wouldn't say it was good, Craig, and let me just be right up front. I think there was certainly opportunities where we could have and should have used EAS. I think it gave us information about where we can use it in the future. Sitting in the EOC at the time of the event with several other people trying to make decisions, without knowing everything that was going on in the field, looking back at that moment, I asked myself why we didn't use EAS. The report, kind of expresses that the people who are working in the field, well, it does express that people who are working in the field think that would have been a bad idea. We didn't know that at the time that we were in the EOC. It turns out that was probably a decision where we didn't choose to use it that actually ended up working out better than worse, but definitely have acknowledgement that we can do better with that kind of messaging.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We have a lot more to get to in this interview. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Jackson County Administrator Danny Jordan. We're talking about the after action report on the Almeda and South Obenchain fires, focusing today on the Almeda fire. So Danny, when it comes to the EAS, which we talked about in part 1 of this interview, how does the county leadership decide between EASs or the more targeted citizen alerts?
Yeah, so we actually have a lot of options for how we do alerts. We have another thing called iPause that sends out cell signals to a certain radius within a tower. It really depends on the event, and it also depends on the inputs. The report mentions quite often that we lacked situational awareness of what was going on in the field, and that's correct. Just to run you through this real quickly, as the fire started, Ashland has an emergency operations plan. They implemented that plan. They began evacuations and asked the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center emergency manager, to issue alerts for 4 square blocks, which she did. About half hour later, they asked for another 4 blocks or mile north, which she did. As the fire moved into town, a lot of things happened. First of all, I-5 closed down, ODOT, which stopped or slowed the southern evacuation route and also began feeding people from the highway, from the interstate into the evacuation route. That was problematic. As the fire moved into Talent, one of the main ways that we get information is from the cities. Cities in our county all have their own emergency operations plan. They're responsible for responding to emergencies within the cities. We depend on the cities to contact the EOC and ask for evacuations or whatever else kind of support they need, whether it be law enforcement, fire, so on and so forth. In this case, Talent didn't do that, which was problematic for us in just getting information about how to alert people, not by which means, but where to alert. In addition to that, when we aren't able to get information from the city, we usually turn to law enforcement and fire. And law enforcement were busy going door to door evacuating people. They weren't taking a full inventory. For fire, the incident command was moving all over the field because they would set up and then they would get burned out of their position. So they were having a hard time gaining situational awareness themselves in the field because of the significance of the event. Finally, we typically would depend on dispatch to listen to the computer-aided dispatch. In this case, we had so many agencies talking back and forth that it was really hard in the EOC to decipher. So those are our three primary means of gaining information and situational awareness, and until we have that, we wouldn't issue notifications, and that was the difficulty in this case, whether it be by Citizen Alert, EAS, or as I mentioned, IPAWS.
Yeah, a lot to cover. I appreciate you going into detail on that one. We're going to wrap this up here today. We're going to extend the conversation with Danny tomorrow in a 5-on-5. We'll go parts 3 and 4 tomorrow on NBC5 News at 6. Danny, thank you again for coming in, and we'll continue that conversation tomorrow.